very, very limited because we use love for everything. But the free-falling kind of love is from a completely different space. Am I too loud?
No.
Speak up. So whenever we hear, often, when you hear laying down other lovers, those kind of lyrics, or, someone speaks that, the conscience mind, conscience, I know I get those two words mixed up. Our conscience often then tells us that we need to work on our love or lay down other lovers. But the ego self can't lay down the ego self. It's very, very sneaky. Remember, the nature of the beast is very, very sneaky, very crafty. And so then our mind says we need to work on that. We need to lay down those other lovers. We need to put God first. Well, that sounds really good, right? But the truth is, it's a whole different space of governing, which is what we're going to talk about today. So that was really appropriate. And free falling, the ego never, ever wants to free fall. Ever. My ego, my natural self, does not want to operate by the Spirit because I don't know what that means. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's next. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be afraid. I, ego self. So the free falling, which sounds really good in theory to the ego, I think I can do that, But we could do one of those free falling, what do you call those things that we do when we build teams? Trust fall. You guys want to do a trust fall? How many of you guys have ever surfed across a crowd and let people just fall and carry you across the crowd? Okay. Go ahead and throw the giving up there as we go into this. Children, you guys can be released. I know a lot of people are out of town. We are going to go to the park after church. We don't have a pool, but it's okay. Even if you just come and just hang out with us for an hour, just let the kids play and visit. I know some people wanted to talk to me about some stuff. That'd be great. 832-956-0150. Thank you guys for giving. We have Laura Clark that just moved here from Oklahoma. And she was already moving here, but then it unfolded that she's going to really help us with the rearranging. If you still give by check or cash, raise your hand really big. If not, you can just text the amount right there, right over here in the purple. It's like an auction. How much? 10. Okay. How much you giving? 10. I don't know how to do auctions. Anyway, so we're going to go to there, and if you don't have the address, we'll throw it up at the end. If you don't mind getting that, we'll throw that up at the end. Also, Alexandria is going to take pictures. Like, if you guys want a family picture taken or some pictures taken, she'll email them to you, and she thought she would do a donation or something like that for the youth. For the youth. Are y'all out there? So today what we want to talk about is just that. Let's call it Modus Operandi. How to transcend the matrix. Can we call it that? Are y'all out there? Speaking of how to operate from a completely different space, pretty much what we're going to try to do here is say the same thing over and over 50,000 different ways until we begin to walk in the Spirit, then we don't have to speak anymore. All right? Are y'all good? Because it's really good if you can locate where you're governing from. Because we say that there's no guilt, we say that there's no shame, we say that we're free-falling, but then in it we're managing it all the way through. And that's okay. There is no condemnation. It doesn't exist outside. It's in our carnal mind. Your ego will actually create an enemy so that you can blame an enemy to keep you in bondage to an enemy. And it's all an illusion in your mind, okay? Are y'all good? Yes. Okay, so let's look at, you don't have to put it up there, but you guys know when we started out, in the beginning, it said they were both naked, the man and the wife, and they were not afraid. They were not ashamed. And the woman ate of the fruit. You know that whole story. She ate it. She gave it to her husband. He ate it, and the eyes of them were opened. That's what we're going to concentrate on there. Eyes of them were opened. The conscience was birthed right there. Okay? That word actually isn't in the Old Testament. I think it's 32 times in the New Testament as far as this actual word. But what was birthed was an awareness in the sensual world. A choice began to happen in their mind, separating good from evil. That's where it was birthed, right there. When it says their eyes, both of their eyes were open, that actually means, it means several things. To open, the senses were open, especially the eyes. Figuratively, it means to be observant or to blossom. I like that. I mean, I don't like it, but it was part of the process, so I like it. So something blossomed right there. A part of the plan, the God that had the perfect plan was going to mature man into his image, into his likeness. Now let's begin, okay? It wasn't until the likeness and image came until Christ, until Jesus walked on the earth, right? And now he's walking it out in us. Are y'all there? Y'all are going to have to speak back to me if you want out of here. So when it says that your ears are like eyes open to blossom, like in Isaiah 42:20, you don't have to turn there. It said, you've seen many things, but you pay no attention. Your ears are open, but you do not listen. So he begins to deal with them like you have something blossomed. You're hearing, but you're not hearing. You're seeing, but you're not seeing. Doesn't that sound like scriptures in the New Testament? He's constantly talking to them that you're living from a different government, okay? You think you're acting like you're home, but nobody's there, right? That's kind of the insanity of our world. So the word conscience means, there's several things. Okay, this is the Webster's Dictionary. The sense of consciousness, the other conscious, right? The awareness, the moral goodness or blameworthiness of one's own conduct, intentions, or character, together with the feeling of obligation to do right or wrong. Sounds like a good thing. Listen to this, it's the part of the superego. In psychoanalysis, it's used as a method explaining and treating mental and emotional problems by having the patient talk about dreams and feelings and memories, okay? Conscience is how I like to say it to myself. It's part of the superego that transmits, everyone say transmits. Remember we talked about the radio transmitter. Okay, it's the conscience, the conscience. I know it's never spelled that way. It transmits commands and to the ego. Okay, from the ego to the ego, same energy. Another definition: conformity to what one considers to be correct, right, or morally good. We want to teach our kids to live by their conscience, don't we? Not anymore. Not who we are, right? We had somebody write us, and they said, how do I now teach my children this gospel? Yeah. And we are working with you. We are working with doing some children books. We're going to make some videos. We're really excited. We already have a curriculum to help people, because what we did when we jacked up our children is we started teaching them how to live out of their conscience, which is a way of governing. Okay, and so what we did is it's exactly like how the law invoked sin, or it highlighted sin. And so all of a sudden, we are highlighting or activating the very faculty that causes the torment and that causes the ego self to grow. And the fear is, if we don't have a conscience, then all anarchy, like people are just going to go crazy. It's the same fear that men don't want to teach that it's a finished work by grace, because then they think men are going to act however they want. Okay, it's the same fear, right? And we justify it as parents, So conformity to what one considers to be right or wrong. Another explanation or definition: sensitive regard for fairness or justice. That's not fair. Right. How many times do we say that, hear that? We listen to politicians and our conscience is, that's not right, okay? I'm just helping you locate, that's a space of governing. I'm not condemning any of it, okay? But I'm telling you that the sons of God, they govern from a deeper place. And that's what we're learning to do, okay? It also means consciousness. It's what you're aware of. So in Scripture, conscience, the Greek word means together with, to know and see. So all of a sudden, what was born or blossomed within mankind, within Adam and Eve, is they saw their state. God allowed them to see what the state of being would be if they wanted to live separate from him. Yeah. And he described it as nakedness. I know that we have little pictures of the garden. We think it's little naked vegetarians or whatever you think. But what we do know, it's a state of being that they saw themselves. Their eyes were open to a state of what life would look like if they lived from their conscience. So some people say that the Spirit was on the outside. We know there was a glory. We know all through Scripture they're longing for it to be further clothed. Right? So we know that there was a state of being, a feeling, an understanding. Something blossomed inside of man of what it would be like to live and operate from a different government. And in Genesis, when Moses wrote it, or when he heard it or saw it or whatever, however he got it, he described it as nakedness. How many of you guys have ever felt nakedness? That can be a good thing, as long as you don't try to cover it. Let's just title it that. Don't cover your nakedness. We want to get more views. All right. Conscience, joint knowing from wrong, because it's a free moral agent, innate discernment, self-judging, consciousness, conscience, which joins moral and spiritual consciousness as part of being created in the divine image. So, they already were aware of God. They were already aware of the garden and the fellowship of God. Now they were aware of something else. Another world had opened up. Their eyes were opening up to what was coming. And this is the good news. It was all part of the plan because God works everything out for our good. Okay, so according to all people, this God-given capacity is to know right and wrong. The problem with conscience, is it all has to do with your perception. Okay? You could be born in the Middle East. You could be born under different governments. You can be born in a different culture. You can be born in a different time. And according to what you perceive, then your conscience may respond. That's why Paul praised the Gentiles when he was like, when they live, actually it was Jesus, they live by their conscience. He was praising them when they don't even know the law and they live by their conscience. He was like, it just shows you that within man is the laws of God. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, we're going to go somewhere here. So naked was a state of being. Mankind had to experience a sense of self, separated from God, without glory, without light, without spirit. The word perception is the process of perceiving with the senses. So what blossomed were their senses. Into a sensual world they go. And down the hill we go, right? Into the sensual world they go. Okay. So here God comes. Adam, where are you? He starts calling mankind, just like he is right now. He starts calling man out of the government of conscience. Adam, where are you? Oh, I'm hiding within my conscience. I got to cover myself. I got to make it right. I've got to lay down every other lever. It's that same conversation going in your mind in this space of governing, and God's calling you out. You know how he's calling you out? He's saying you can free fall. Exactly what we just operated out today. He starts calling him out of that space of governing. You don't want to govern from that space. I love the word governing because to me, I don't picture a government. That may be an awkward word for you, but the way you operate your life, the way you rule your life. A husband and a wife can govern their home. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, the way that you begin your mode of operandi, right? Modus operandi. So he starts calling him out of that way. You don't want to go this way. Like, you can come back to me. He's calling him back into fellowship, okay? Out of this space of government. God calls Adam forth out of his conscience and presents to him the lamb that was slain from the foundations of the world to reveal the Creator's forgiveness and his power to cleanse all from unrighteousness. This is why Jesus was slain from the beginning, for the consciousness of man. It wasn't because God needed blood. Okay? It was not because God desired that. It wasn't because God was grossed out by all the things mankind was doing and mankind was doing it all, correct? It was because their conscience, that space of governing, was going to condemn them to the point they would never come out of hiding. And for God, it was always for man to come out of hiding and back into fellowship. That one act that he did, that one disobedience caused them to go into hiding within their own conscience and build the kingdom there. They began to build a kingdom, all right. They began to build the kingdom in the carnal mind on how things should be. It's exactly how when we watch something go on the news and our carnal mind decides how things should be. It's exactly how you go into a store and you see people interacting with each other and that judgment releases how things should be. It's a way of governing from the carnal, and we all do it, okay? We're just here together to help us find the space so that we can go into the free-falling space. Am I ticking y'all off yet? All right. So here's his plan. He's so smart. He's like the smartest person I know. From innocence, Adam was innocent, okay? He didn't know anything. His way of fellowship was not in the books. We read the books. It was not in the message. It was nothing secondhand. It was crawling up in Daddy's lap and hearing the story straight from Dad.
Yeah. The real thing. Yeah.
That was it. He got to fellowship, it said, in the cool of the day, which means the wind, the breeze of the day. He got to fellowship. He didn't know anything, which is how we once again enter the kingdom and enter this new way of living every single day. And every single time you do it, this conscience, this carnal man, this mind of ours feels vulnerable, feels scared, feels like it's losing control because it is losing control. Okay? So you'll say something out of this space and your mind will be like, you better not say that. Right? And it's going on at the same time. But God knew he wanted to make man in his image and likeness. So here he is now in the image, knowing right and wrong. Step one. All right, I'm gonna release you to this process. My whole heart is to have mature sons. It's a level of fellowship. It won't but just be you sitting on Daddy's lap and receiving from me. It'll be reciprocal. It's beyond sitting on Daddy's lap and just receiving from him. Can you imagine that? So the process began in the earth where God had to meet man where man was governing. The law came because man was governing from a space called the conscience. That's why the law came. It wasn't in the heart of God to give all these rules, right? He had to meet man where he is. So God was going to bring man from innocence to holiness, from image and add likeness, the living soul to a life-quickening spirit, from a servant to a son. So I heard somebody say this. He called them dispensations. The word dispensation is a way or a way of order, a way of rule, okay? I'm going to call them governments, okay? So he said there were several different governments that happened with mankind. In the garden, it was innocence, okay? And then once they made the choice, then we know it became conscience. So here, man, and all these people bought me pins, and I just don't even know. I don't even know who. I think someone comes in here at night and just dries out the pins. Okay, so, and then the third one, which, God, this is what we buck against, but we birthed it from the conscience, was the human rule. This is what he said became the first three areas of rule. Okay, so conscience requires choice every time. Every time. Remember, listen. Jesus didn't make choices.
Yeah, wow.
He just did what he saw.
Yes.
How easy is that?
Yeah.
Now, he learned it. He had to choose it until he was matured. And then God's like, this is my son. Boop. He's going to rule the earth just like I rule. It's my mature son. He's going to rule in the earth. There was no more choice. There's no choice in maturity. We think that we get more mature and we get to make the right choices because we're more mature. Yeah, you're mature, all right. Your ego is really mature. You're so mature. All right. Oh. The conscience requires self-rule. It's a fragile link to God. It wasn't ever God's final plan, obviously. It had to be judged by the flood. Man was so destroying each other because they were governed from a different space that God had to come in and really preserve mankind. Because we were destroying each other by the way, we just thought we had a good way of ruling. Hiding came in Shame came in, and this is a statement, no sinner, if you want to call people sinners, as ever comes in by conscience, although that's what we preach to.
Right. Yep.
We lay it out. We dot our I's, we cross our T's, we do the dramas. I've been to a lot of, how many of you guys have been to some hell houses? Yeah. I don't mean your house that you go home to today. I mean Halloween hell houses, right? And we do everything we can to try to strike the conscience of man, but that has never brought man back into fellowship because it's a way of rule that's actually in the way of fellowship. It's actually the block to fellowship. We get to know God in all things, in all decisions, okay? So these areas where we got it worked out, that's the block to fellowship in that area. These areas where you're weak and then he's strong, the reason it's a good thing is because you kind of like go, I don't know what to do here. Yeah. You kind of yield that way of governing, and then he speaks to you, and it isn't about instruction, it's about the fellowship. It was always about fellowship. Are y'all dead? Okay. I just want to make sure. I'm preaching this to me. Listen, I know that there's some giants in the land. Good ones. People that are beyond human, that are being released in spirit. And so I'm going to help you like a surgeon. God uses words like a surgeon to go in and separate bone from marrow, spirit from soul. Yeah. So what's keeping you from being a giant in the land is literally the way that we're governing.
Wow.
So if you can hear me and you can go, oh, it's not about feeling bad. It's not about trying harder. It's about going, oh, I don't even have to entertain that space. Yeah. Romans 2:4, it says that it's the kindness that brings metanoia. It's not your conscience. It's the kindness. Conscience is right and wrong, decisions, choice activated. You're always examining yourself, and there's conflict. There is no conflict in the government of God. There is no conflict within your spirit. Those that are led by the Spirit, there is no conflict. I mean inner turmoil. There's no decision. There's no choice. I made a mistake a couple weeks ago, just one. I said to God, maybe to y'all, to the God in you, no, that I want to be a person that lives from the inside, whether anyone agrees with me or not, where I don't need the amen, and I also I'm not waved by the amen or the disgust or whatever, the thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you want to say, whatever. So then God has made sure that I could hear the thoughts of men. And all during the week, I could hear people's thoughts, people that were thinking I didn't go far enough, people that thought I was going too far. But the problem with it wasn't any people. The problem was it brought in conflict within me, and God was showing me that I was governing from the wrong space. Because I get to know him in all things. I get to know him in as we discover, as we walk together, as we lead. So as soon as I consider what someone else thinks, okay? Soon as I consider it, I've shifted the government over. I've laid down the government within me of knowing and walking in fellowship with God to consider man. And I invoke my own. Listen, we invoke our own turmoil from that space. And we can't blame anybody. I'm telling you, we want to be like I want to be. Here's another one. I'm doing it again. I'm saying these prayers again. I love the martyrs. I love those that would stand in the midst of everybody and go, call me crazy, burn me at the stake. I know my God. I want to know my God in all things. Right? Can you imagine these people they would throw in prison and they'd accuse them of all these things and they had to get to the bottom of, am I leading people astray? Is it this? Is it that? And then they have to come to a place of just peace. Because you're never going to fully know right and wrong. You're never going to cross every T. You're never going to dot every I. It's never going to happen, and God will make sure of it. Because he's about fellowship. He's about governing out of fellowship and not governing out of the conscience. So then the third thing that came is human conscience birthed the human rule. This is all ways of governing. So rule came into play. And you guys know what the earth looked like then. It always requires submission. You guys remember when I started drawing these spheres of authority? Here's another pin that we don't care about. Okay. These spheres of authority, it could be religion. It could be politics. It could be the medical world, you know. Every one of these, when it's birthed from conscience, requires conformity. Spirit is fluid. Why do I say that? I had someone say, why do you say that? Okay? Because there's image, which is a form, and then there's likeness, which is spirit. And spirit is fluid. You cannot contain it. You cannot form it how you want. You don't know where it's going. You don't know where it's coming from. You cannot control people with your words. You cannot keep them in your sphere of authority. This is where they burn people at the stake, because they would not, you start operating not out of these governments of man, and you transcend the matrix. And listen, just because you're not, you don't want your shots or whatever they're called, vaccines, and you are into natural stuff, does not mean you transcended this. What you probably did is go create another sphere. Because you do what God says. If you're going to Russia and they require the shots and you're in fear, it's because you're under this one. As soon as I make a decision, this is how I'm going to live my life. These are the principles that I have to do. I've created that box that Monica was talking about. Oh, are you saying we don't live by principle? 100% I'm saying we don't live by principle. I'm saying as you mature as the sons, you live by spirit. What do you see? We live out of the consciousness, not conscience, consciousness, what you're aware of, and you yield. That's what we're maturing into. That's what we're maturing. And listen, there's no condemnation if you need a Tylenol and Jesus. I was seeing, that shirt that says coffee and Jesus. Honey, coffee and Jesus. But if that's where you want to live, it is the mixture. It is the mixture. You're not condemned for it. Do you understand what I'm saying? But if you have to have that, you have to have that boundary. We're taught like we got to have those accountability partners. If you've had them for 20 years, just quit it. It's not what's in your heart. If you have to be accountable for 20 years not to do that thing that you're afraid that you're doing, just go do it. Because I promise you're already doing it. And don't have your wife call me about it. I'm just kidding. Everyone's like, ooh, I'll get to do it. That church said I get to do it. The problem, the scary thing about living in the Spirit or leading people that you're teaching to live in the Spirit, okay, this is the scary thing. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Let's say we have 10 leaders, and one of them is having sex with a few people, and you kind of wish they wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we want to do, really, right? We'd like you to live a different life. But God says, don't touch them. I'm after their heart. And this one over here looks righteous, man. He crosses every T, he dots every I, and God says, set him down. I need to do a work in him. That scares me, because then if I am released to live by the Spirit, and I get to hear that, then guess what? Then I also get to release people that are judging. Oh, she's okay with people sleeping at the altar?
Right. Come on.
We had someone move in with us when they was going through a divorce in our little town, just to give them a place to stay, just to love on them. And it went through our little town that we're for divorce. That's what you got to put up with. Anytime you come out from under a sphere, you are going to be persecuted. And your character, this is what's so crazy, if you don't say a word. Just don't say a word. I don't want to be someone that has to say a word. Look at my life. You really think that I'm for divorce? Like, let's get divorced? Like 33 years? We fought like hell to be in covenant for the first 31. But here's the deal. People are going to accuse you if they don't want to get close enough to see how you live. And it's just going to be there. And you just have to be okay with it. Because the good thing is what it tests you in, it tests that ego self, that part that wants to come up and justify. And I want that part gone anyway. You know what I mean? I don't want to live by that part. So keep trying to pull me out of the spirit. I need it. And then when I punch you in the face, then I'll know I'm out of the spirit. Just kidding. I'm not going to punch you. I'm not that rough. So Romans 13:1, it says, this is what Paul was saying to them. Okay, so here we go. Let me go back up. So human government, okay? That's why in Genesis, right away in Genesis, he had to come out and say, whoever sheds human blood, by human blood, their blood will be shed. For the image of God, God has made mankind. So right away, God had to say, look, if you're going to start killing people, if you're going to live by your conscience, you want to rule by what you think is right. If you kill somebody, reaping and sowing started. Blood's coming. That was all about the conscience. There's not reaping and sowing in the kingdom. There's not. The word love is agape. I don't even like to say love. It's a nature. It only gives. It's reciprocal. It flows. It's not like our relationships where you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It's nothing to do with that. I'm going to scratch your back. Unless it irritates you, right? And God's love just keeps flowing, and you slap it away, and it just keeps flowing. It's an altogether different nature. It's an altogether different way of governing. So right away, the fear of man comes into play when man began to govern, and we're evolving from innocence to being ruled by conscience, and now humans are ruling over humans. And so God set things in order. Look at, even in the New Testament, they didn't count the women and children. That wasn't God's, that wasn't how he planned it, but there was always had to set up a hierarchy, or there'd be anarchy or hierarchy. Doesn't anyone else, when I say the word hierarchy, what movie comes to mind? I mean, anarchy. Anybody? What movie? No, it's Breakfast Club. There'll be anarchy. Okay. So fivefold ministry was given because of the conscience. The authorities in the church came into play because of the conscience rule. Bishops over your soul, husbands over your wives. It even goes in about slaves and masters. That wasn't God's plan. But that's where man was choosing to rule. So he's like, okay, within that rule, if you're going to keep, being babies, I'm going to help you keep your Pampers on. I'm going to help you not burn down the whole building again, right? So all these things came to place that make us feel safe. Governors and judges and bishops. I know we're afraid to preach this because then we think if people are led by the Spirit, they're going to come out. That's what they did. Yeah. Not to be rude, but the people that are offended at the church were, that's what they did. They didn't know that they could be ruled by the voice inside of them. Romans 3:13:1, Paul says, let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except for what God has established. He had to establish authority because man was governed by their conscience. It was a way of governing. Okay? But you guys know Jesus, in the earth, he was like, I'll give it to Caesar if he wants it, give it to Caesar. But he also broke it whenever he was supposed to break it. He ate on the Sabbath. He did miracles on the Sabbath. He did what he wanted. He did what Father did. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. So he wasn't fully subject to it. Paul says, for there's no authority except that which God has established. The authority that exists have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted in this judgment. The other ones he goes on to say about dispensation is then the promise came, law, and then grace, which is the kingdom, Spirit-led. Okay, going fast. Are y'all listening fast? Yeah. The conscience will drive, that way of governing will drive man away from God. They will see their own naked state, and it'll never show them the I am of who they are. God did not restore man back to a conscience government, but he wanted to pass through it back into the lap of Father. That's why we enter the kingdom like a little child, like a little baby. We have to leave it all together. See, we want to hold on to one and release the other. It's in us, okay? We want to hold on to the good, on the good of good and evil tree, and release the evil. And we've done it most of our life. It's a way of governing. When what God is after is we leave all of it. This is why he hung out with those that had already spent their life. It's why the woman, Fotini, I believe is her name, that she had already been married 5 times. She'd already spent her life, and now she's still looking for love, right? But it was why people like that were able to receive it, because they were already releasing it. They saw that they made a mess out of their life, that they didn't want to do it the way they saw that they were doing it. So conscience-led is the carnal mind, and listen to this, you guys. It'll teach you just to know oneself. And the reason you have to be careful, I read a lot of different stuff. I listen to a lot of different stuff. When I started just studying people that were doing studies on people that had near-death experiences or that had died, a lot of them were not Christian books that were put together. Okay, because to be quite honest, we thought you're just floating around saying holy, 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 and we weren't activating, living in that spirit place. And so I've been just reading different stuff, right? But the problem when you step out, I'm not looking for truth. I'm not looking for a religion or something else to hold on to, okay? I think it's all bogus. I think that all the methods are just methods. I think that if we had the wall of Jericho today, if it came down, right, then we would make a method out of it. We would teach it. We would write books. We would train people. And we would just be tired of yelling. You know what I mean? Right? And so those are just things, okay? That was extra. Knowing oneself. The problem, not a warning. I'm not going to warn you, okay? When you start, you can get into spiritual things that are all about just knowing oneself. And it still just builds up the conscience. Because it's deeper than just knowing yourself, okay? It's knowing the voice of God. It's knowing him. Now, when your heart is earnest and you're sincere and you want to know who God is and you're searching within yourself, you're going to find God. And you're going to have the opportunity to have fellowship there, okay? But when you always have to get to the bottom of how you feel and how you see things, thank God I married Darren, because he just would not let me keep talking. Because we would just talk about the same, not me and him, but my raising, we could talk about the same issue from every angle for 40 years, and I'm good at it. I was good at that part, and you never get to the bottom of it. You never feel heard, all right? But literally, when we were first married, when we did not know what to do, we would fast and pray. Like, I don't like you either. What do we do? Let's fast and pray. I'm not kidding. Anytime we were at the end of thinking we're about to end our marriage and the early years was really rough, we would fast and pray because we knew what God said, because we were after God's voice. I wasn't after just staying together. It actually would have hurt a lot less, I thought. But we were after the voice. What is God saying in the middle of it? And once you get to the voice, okay, the difference in being led by conscience is its choice. The difference in being led by the Spirit, it's the voice. It's just a couple letters. So is that the truth or a lie? Oh, you're thinking from your conscience. Is that right or wrong? Oh, you're thinking from your conscience. We got to make fun of it. We got to laugh about it, guys. That part, should I run or should I stay? Plenty of times I've been with people that I thought, I need to run. This is baloney. I promise you, Jesus never felt like he should run from deception, because he was always after the voice. Ooh, that was gross. You do not that panic that I got to get away. What if they're lying to me? If you feel that, it's because you're still living from the conscience or human rule. And that's okay. I remember one time when we first were married, I had all my issues, one or two of them just inside me, all these issues, right? I remember one time I felt this is just, I don't even know. But anyway, Darren and I were in bed, and I felt like he put his hand on my back, and I could see like a bear, shredding my back. We'd been married a year or two, okay? Now, mind you, we are pioneers. We're going to push the envelope. We're going to discover things. We're going to go against the grain any which way we can, all right? So we were always out there. We always were in persecution. You got it? You guys even understand that? Yeah. Move to Atoka and just try to address the rapture in 1999. You want to know who demons are? They're the deacons in some church. Why does it threaten you if someone disagrees with you? There's no threat. There's no threat. Let people be, right? Anyway, that was extra. So Darren put his hand on my back, and I'm like young. I'm like 23 or something, and I saw like him shredding my back, and I'm feeling it. I'm in fear. It was like you're discerning. I don't even know those words yet. You know what I mean? But I knew enough to tell him. Of course, we thought we were experiencing all these demonic things that we didn't realize were fears within us, blah, blah, blah. And so I tell him, and he's just like, it was crazy. That's all it was. It was that. Until it dissolved. And fear and panic. We've been under leaders. When they started teaching stuff on grace, the same feeling would come over us. Have you guys ever felt that feeling? Like, are you freaking kidding? Maybe you didn't see the bear. Like, I got to get out of here. These people are, you know what I mean? Run. Been there, right? And then I sit still. And in that feeling, that fight or flight, like Jared says, I find the voice. And I realize there's no fear there. It's a whole different place of governing. Right? The fear of what my family's going to say, the fear of being rejected, the fear of who I'm going to have to leave behind, the fear of blah, 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 blah. It all comes from the human government. I have no fear here. I'm going to just get to know God in all things. And I'll be really sad if I have to walk away from my family. But I have no fear there. I have no sorrow here. I'm here to discover. The Spirit walk is all about discovery. It's a skip in the park. It's a joy. We pull it up into the human conscience, and then we invoke torment. It's not going to cost you anything if you live by the Spirit. But it's going to cost you your freaking life if you live by the ego self. If you live by your conscience, it's going to beat the heck out of you. You're going to feel it. It's going to hurt. And I've lived in both. But deep in my spirit, there's only peace. And so for a couple weeks, I had some little turmoil going on. What people thought, what people think. And I did it. And then I get back into this free space of God just going, I don't have to dot my I. I don't have to cross my T. I promise you, we are walking in deception. Some way or somehow. That's why we're growing. If you want to call it deception. Do you call it deception that Joni, my grandbaby, still poops her pants? Okay, sorry. Spirit-led, Christ's mind, knowing God's voice. What God says, remember what Darren said. He's sitting there, he's in pain, he's reading in pain, he's on all these kind of drugs. It looks like one thing, God didn't come through, all the offenses that could hit your mind. I'm not going to live from that. I know where that voice leads me. It leads me unto death. So as I'm sitting there rubbing his feet because he's trying to get rid of the pain that he's in, right? And it's obviously that he's going. He says, he's making me repeat him. That sucker, up until the last breath, Sheila, there's only one voice. No other voice will we acknowledge. And I say, there's one voice. No other voice will acknowledge. I don't care how valid it looks. I don't care how much your emotions agree with it. I don't care what you thought the prophecy was. There is only one voice, and that voice brings peace, and that voice brings joy. Everything else we pull up into a different place of governing. Y'all there? Eternal life, John 17:3, means to know and experience him, the only true God. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 2:14. Someone living on an entirely natural... Can you do the Passion Translation? 1 Corinthians 2:14. I'm trying to go fast. Someone living on an entirely, and I put natural man or human level, will reject the revelation of God's Spirit, for they don't make any sense to him. He can't understand the revelations of the Spirit because they are only discovered by the illumination of the Spirit. And listen, Jesus, I know I called Darren a sucker. I almost called Jesus a sucker just to tell you. Okay, Jesus allowed people to feel deceived on purpose. He knew they were going to think, oh, he's a cannibal when he says, eat my flesh and drink my blood. He knew that they were going to think when he said, tear this temple down in 3 days, I'm going to, you know what I mean? He knew what they were going to think, and he said it anyway. See, this way of living, when you're living from that place of government, that carnal conscience, it always demands proof. It always demands that you dot that I and cross that T. And when you're not willing to do it, man, you're going to make some people angry. You'll make your own mind angry. And Jesus didn't do it. He didn't say, no, come on now. You know that I didn't. Listen, guys that have walked with us, the disciples didn't have to go back and say, you know that's not what they meant. Come on, let's come with me. Trust me, and we can eat his flesh and drink his blood. I bet it's not going to be so bad. He didn't have to talk anybody into it. He's like, this is a whole new way of governing. You're never going to understand it from your natural. Come follow me there. Yeah. And that people could either hear it or they didn't. Okay, Romans 2:14, let's say in the Passion Translation. For example, Paul says, whenever people don't possess the law as their birthright, this is what I was saying earlier, they commit sin, it still confirms that the law is present in their conscience. For when they instinctively do what the law requires, that becomes a law given to govern them, even though they don't have Moses' law. Verse 15, it demonstrates that the requirements of the law are woven into their hearts. They know what is right and wrong, for their conscience validates the law in their heart. Their thoughts correct them in one instance and commend them in the other. He's describing to them the way that they were ruled at that time. It's the same reason they had to go do parables. They had to weigh everything out. But it wasn't going to be for the mature sons. Are y'all there? All right. The conscience is a faculty of government. It's a judgment seat. You want to know where the judgment seat is? In your conscience. It's the tree of knowledge. It's comparing. It's examining, separating good from evil. I don't think you should do that. Oh, really? Get behind me, Satan. I'm going to the cross, right? You decide what's punishable, what's a violation. Constantly hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts? What are your deeds? What is your nature? You need to conform. The judge and jury and the key witnesses all within that government. That's the torment. And listen, guys, I know you're like, are you saying we don't live by that? I'm scared of what I'll do. And the reason in Jude 2:4, he said that there have been some who have sneaked in among you unnoticed. They are depraved people whose judgment was prophesied in Scripture a long time ago. They have perverted the message of God's grace into a license to commit immorality and turned against our absolute master, our Lord Jesus Christ. That's the fear. This is why people got upset when this beautiful grace message was preached. Don Keithley's been preaching it in this city for years. Because people are like, there's going to be people that sneak in and tell them everything's okay, everything's okay. But that doesn't mean that the message isn't the truth. Does that make sense? Okay, so listen, sometimes, especially from parents, a lot of times the fear is sincere, but it's still coming out of conscience. So Peter, I believe his fear, his anxiety, let's not call it fear, but that is fear, was sincere. Oh, never, Lord, I would never want to see that happen to you. Or we put all these boundaries around our children when they're older, right? And we don't want them to cross those boundaries, and our fear is justified, but it's still from our conscience. It's never going to produce life. And fear always releases control. Or sometimes it's just outright control. Okay? So the conscience requires perception. The word perception, I like this word. It's how things seem according to here's my little saying. You guys learn to say it. According to my limited understanding. Have you guys ever said that yet since I talked about it? Just say it. It'll help your ego really a lot. This is what if Peter would have said, according to my limited understanding, Jesus. And he's like, exactly. Maybe I didn't have to call you Satan, You made it God's voice, So perception is how it seems listen, I don't care how many degrees you have. I don't care where you've traveled. None of that matters. Our limited understanding from the conscience mind is limited. I cannot say if the Spirit of God tells Karen to move to Iowa and just go get a waitress job and change your name to Flo. I'm just kidding. If she feels with all her heart that's what God told her to do, we got to release her to do it. No matter how much it hurts. We're not here to build our own little time here. I mean, maybe you are. That's okay too, but here's a quote. In the name of Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God, cease from giving your ear to every man that clamors for attention, including the myriad voices in your own soul. Shut it. Shut it. Or quiet coyote. Quiet coyote. That's a cartoon. In quietness and confidence, give your ear to him. That you might know his voice apart from all the strangers, all the other lovers. Cease, stop, nada, null, from trying to divide between what's right and what's wrong, the sheep and the goats, and only seek to know the one true shepherd. He will do the dividing for you. You can trust him. Cease from consulting with men about what is right and what is wrong, who is of God and who is of Satan. But seek to know him who is the only mediator between God and man. That was from George Houghton. Listen, guys, this is what we do. You walk in a church, they tell you what they believe. You decide if you believe it. And then those people call people that release you to live into the spirit a cult. When the actual, the definition of a cult is conformity. Sorry, that one got me. You're releasing people from conformity. Y'all, it's such a joy, guys. It's such a joy. We don't even know that you get to fully begin to be yourself and only experience love in the growth of it. We don't even know. We've been so conditioned to live human, and you do this, and then I'm going to be your friend, and you treat me like this, and then I'm going to hold you at arm's length. That's what we've done to each other. But God has created, there's a world, and it's God's world where we only operate out of the nature of love. And thank God we're tested in it. Because when I operate from that space, it heals and delivers and set people free. Just my presence. When the guys lived with us, when I couldn't wait, I told Travis, I'm waiting for you to just really mess up big. Come on, I'm rooting for you to crash and burn. Just kidding. And I did because Travis, in his mind, his role in life was to keep everything happy. If there's conflict in the family, let's bring it up. There's not conflict, right? So you guys have heard me say this. Travis would walk in, and first thing he'd say, didn't matter how his day went, maybe he went through hell, whatever he went through, you know what I mean? He'd walk in and he'd go, dinner smells great. And I'd be like, Travis, that's the candle. I didn't cook anything. It's not really an apple pie, you know what I mean? But it was smiles. I'm not saying it was good or bad, but what I am saying, it wasn't the authentic him. It's okay if you crash and burn, guys. This thing that you think you can't tell anybody because people are going to see you different, that's nothing to do with God. I remember one of our dear daughters that in a spiritual way, her father was grooming her to be his next wife. Hallelujah. And she had to tell somebody, and he ended up going to prison. We helped her. We literally picked her up and drove past him. All her life, that was what he was grooming her for, right? And she needed to tell people. She needed to tell somebody. And so I'm shopping, and she'd tell me stuff, and I'm like, I make my face when I'm over here, like that bastard, you know what I mean? I'm all the emotions, and then I'm just laying it down, and I'm loving her, you know what I mean? Bastard's in the Bible. But what I'm saying is I wanted to respond, but in it, I'm only going to give her this response. And teenagers just get you ready for it. You know what I mean? Everything. You name it, everything. We could tell right away. If it was bestiality, we got you. We can tell right away. Come on, that's not who you are any more than it's who you are, that you are just self-righteous. You foolish little man. You can't be righteous within yourself. It's all the same. None of it's your identity. You are only pure love. You are only pure light. You are perfected in him, and he wants to mature that part of you. But as you're believing from this government that you're anything less than that, that is your bondage.
Yes. Come on. So good.
You start releasing people from that, and they want to burn you. Philippians, Paul says, you got to forget what's behind you and strain for what's ahead. Literally, guys, I told someone a couple weeks ago, I'm not talking about if you're just coming into the kingdom, all right? You're just coming in. I'm talking about we've been through deliverance and healings and theophostics and all the sozos and all the tools. And, oh, there's another book. There's another book. Maybe we can get more free. Let's go buy the next book. Oh, there's another method. Another method. Let's go do the next method. Listen, even as we're talking about meditation, that's not going to be what sets you free. It's a position of your heart. All of these are just tools. I had somebody the other day contact me, and they're like, this is what I'm dealing with within your mind. I can connect you with people that will help you with your mind. I'm not that person. All I'm going to tell you is like, let's forget about that. Let's go into the spirit. There's a shortcut if you want it. Hebrews 10:22, it says, he said, we come closer to God and we approach him with an open heart. Fully convinced, we are free, fully convinced that nothing will keep us at a distance from him. For our hearts have been sprinkled with blood to remove impurity, and we have been free from an accusing conscience. You're already free from it. Oh, you did it this morning? Oh, you're free from it. Unless you're going to be conscience ruled. You're already free from it. It already didn't happen. Before you did all the things that you've done, it was already cleansed by the blood of the Lamb. Now, you want to move into that? That's where you're going to get persecuted from everybody else that still is all mad because they think God's mad at them. That's it. It's like you won the lottery. And I've worked all my life. And you came right in and you won the lottery. Of course I'm going to persecute you. That makes me mad. Can I get a loan? I'm not going to persecute you too hard. I'm just going to think it's not fair behind the scenes. Can I get a loan? You know. Favor will tick people off. When you're confident, it says when you're confident because you've been cleansed in your conscience. You're already clean, you're unstained, and you're presentable to God inside and out.
Come on. So good.
Does he not know what kind of woman is at his feet?
Yeah.
Does he not know what kind of woman it is? Oh, you're damn straight. He knows what kind of woman it is. She's righteous. Yeah. It's you that don't know what kind of woman she is. You'll listen online. I got you.
Come on. So good.
Conscience. Well, that's not how we do things. That's not how we govern. You better get it in order. You're going to have anarchy. Did you watch The Breakfast Club? They got really close. Don't you? That's our last song. Forget about me. Ho, ho, ho. And she walked on by. All right. I'm going to keep singing if you throw money. Ho. That government blocks the government of God. It's in me too, guys. I go through listen, mamas. It's really, I thought, even when I wrote it down, I'm like, it's an oxymoron. I put my adult children. Your adult children aren't children, okay? And when you still want to always speak into their life or govern them a little bit, it's because you're living from man's rule. At some point, you have to release them, even if they're acting like complete idiots. And you got to be okay that they represent you however they're acting, and just give them love. I don't like it either. I just want to control one area. Like, can I control one area? Can't I just come up into that shallow government of self-rule and control in this area? If you guys would have known what happened last Sunday, you guys would laugh really hard or be really grossed out. I have no control of me. Okay. Yeah, you want to know, don't you? Just kidding. I almost want to tell all that stuff. I love telling that kind of stuff. I'm the kind of person, if I fall down the stairs when I'm up here, I think it's funny, even if I get embarrassed, because I want you to understand it's okay. The performance stuff just grosses me out. It always has grossed me out, right? And so whenever you go, oh, she must be embarrassed. Oh, good. Your ego needs to be embarrassed. You know what I mean? Like it's life. You're going to fall down. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess up. Now let's discover. Let's discover. And let's not kick people back into place because they get out of line. All right, we're almost done. Here we go. John 16:7 says, but truly, very truly, not just truly, it's very truly, I tell you, it is for your good that I am going away, Jesus says. Unless I go away, the advocate will not come to you, the Spirit of God. But if I go, I will send him to you. Verse 8. When he comes, he will prove to the world to be in the wrong about sin and righteousness and judgment. Here we go. Oh, yeah, that's right. He's going to talk to you about your sin. He's going to talk to you about your righteousness. He's going to talk to you about your judgment. The Spirit. It's the Spirit. Okay, verse 9. About sin, because people don't believe me. If he's talking to you because you keep getting jacked up in this area, he's going to not talk to you that you're getting jacked up in this area. He's going to talk to you about the fact that you don't believe and trust him, that you're clean. And you're going to keep going, but did you know what I did? I did it again. Did you know what I did? And he's like, you don't trust me. You're clean. That's where the Spirit comes. You don't trust me. That's not who you are. You did not do that. You did not do that. It's already been cleansed. That's the voice of the Spirit. Isn't that sweet? Verse 10, the Spirit, when the Spirit talks to you, he's going to talk to you about your righteousness. Because I'm going to the Father. You're perfect. Because the Lamb was slayed. It went to your conscience is clean. I'm already before the Father. You're already perfected. The Spirit's language is he's talking to you about righteousness. You're already right with God. There's nothing left for you to obtain. That's Spirit talk. Listen, the voice that says anything else is not coming from their Spirit of God. The voice that wants you to hide, the voice that wants you to work on it, the voice that wants you to always overcome is not coming from the Spirit. It's coming from the conscious carnal mind of man. I'm telling you, it's in the free falling that you realize that you're already delivered and that thing falls off. You've been so scared to be, you self-rule, you self-govern because you're afraid of what you do if you don't. Maybe you did it last time. Okay, maybe you did it last time. Maybe you fell down over and over, 70 times 7. Right? But God's saying, just come on, you can trust me. Once you see you're righteous, that thing won't have a hold on you ever again. Oh, the Spirit talk about sin because people don't believe me. Righteousness because I'm going to the Father. Where you can see me no longer. That's why you're not going to see me any longer. It's the Spirit. It's the Spirit. It's the Spirit talk. Spirit talk to your spirit. And the Spirit's going to talk to you, verse 11, about judgment. Because the enemy's already been judged. It's already been judged. Sin, error, mistaken, all the frailties, all the things you condemn yourself over, it's already been judged. And I ruled over him. It said he paraded the devil around. Look at this. This enemy's already been judged. Ha. Corinthians 15:24. Here we go. 1 Corinthians 15. I think it's in the translation, the Passion. I'm not sure. Then the final stage. Everybody say final stage. Of completion comes when, he's saying what's coming, when he will bring to an end every other rulership, authority, and power, he will hand them over. And he will hand over his kingdom to the Father. He's not just talking about demonic stuff. All the authorities in your life, even self-rule, the conscious rule, and governings, and bishops, and the fivefold ministry, and the kings, and all of these things, okay? They're all handed over to the Father because you're in complete fellowship with him. Nothing is in between. God told us years ago he's taken out the middleman. It's not because he's mad. God had to set those things in order. Even the fivefold ministry, it's not that it's bad. You guys, when people are saying, amen, and you're still so immature, you need it. The whole point was to mature the saints into where they're ruled just with God. Okay, so it's not bad. But if you're still depending on a man, if you're still depending on a government check, if you're still depending on your wife, if you're still depending on anything outside of the voice of God, you are not ruled in that place of maturity that he's maturing you into yet. All of us. All right. I'm almost done. Here we go. Let's see what else I should say. In perception, your life, all of your life's experiences, everything you've experienced in your life, Quentin, everything. Okay? All your life's experiences are understood through concepts. They all come from experience, teaching, memory, tradition. That's why you have to separate good and evil. Consciousness, the platform, the foundation, the framework, like Monica said, it's a root system. It's what you're aware of. Okay, this is a little key. Hopefully I can say this correctly. Literally, you guys, here's the scary part to our ego. Okay? Literally, it's dissolving that altogether. It's dissolving that way of living altogether. Okay? There's a scripture when it talks about, and you can throw it up there if you want, 1 John 3:8, the one who does what is sinful is of the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason the Son of God appeared, the reason Jesus came on the earth as the Son of God, okay, he was to destroy the works of the devil. That word destroy is not a really great translation. It means to dissolve, to untie, to break. Properly, it means to loose, to let go, to release. No longer holds you, to dissolve that way of governing altogether. We're moving into a spirit discovery. I'm going to quote what I put on Facebook this week. Get ready. Drink this in. You ready? I put like our big brother Jesus for those people that don't know that he's who I love. That's who I put that for. Obviously, it's like our big brother Jesus, but I'm talking to you, okay? Like our big brother Jesus, you, say me, we are divine essence, living within the matrix in order to manifest the true reality and to become the door for others to exit the illusion of separation and to enter into union with the author of life. Like our big brother Jesus, when God became man, we are divine essence. That word essence means you are the essence of divinity. The word essence, listen to this. I love it. The permanent as contrasted with the accidental element of being. Who you are in essence is the permanent you. It's the real you. The individual, the real, the ultimate nature of a thing, especially opposed to its existence. Get this. It's in its proper class or identified of what it is. What the heck are you? Your essence. It also means the most significant element or quality, the substance of who you are, something that exists in or by its very nature, the utmost importance. You are divine, divinity's essence. You live here on this earth within the matrix in order to manifest true reality. That means you got to see and hear. You are here to become the door for others to exit the illusion of separation. You're not the door unless you're living out of your divine essence, which is Jesus, which is the Christ you. Like, save your track, save your voice, save what you're preaching to people. Become your essence. Become your truest self. Let it be unveiled. Go through this. That's what Alex was talking about last week, man. She's just going there and things are just coming up, all this falsity. This wasn't you anyway. That thing you did when you were in the 3rd grade, that thing that happened to you when you were 7, it wasn't you anyway. And she's just flinging it off. And coming into the realization of your truest essence. Showing the earth that there's a place that's outside of separation and has true union with God. All right, let's sum it up. Y'all ready? So we've lived a life with the framework or the foundation, a platform, a root system that's been unto this conscience. Like, how the heck do we live? It's literally like I just dropped you off in another world and you don't know how to do it. Yeah. That's how you should feel. If you don't feel like that, then, there's a good chance you're living out of both, right? So here's our goal, you guys, isn't to change our story and just overcome and live within it. Our goal here on this earth is to release it all together and let him rewrite the script. As you move into your truest essence, you redeem your story.
Right.
You redeem the matrix. I'm going to read a couple little things, and there's a part of me that wants to keep me away from the unknown. Keep it safe. Keep it balanced. Okay? That's the control part of me. That's the natural part of me. It has to look like this. That's why we put labels. I mean, I don't even know what to tell people when they ask me, what kind of church are you? I don't know. You need the label. I don't need it. Discern. You know what I mean? Discern. Isn't that truth? Can you imagine asking Jesus, like, what kind of church do you belong to? You know what I mean? He didn't belong to any of them. That's of this world.
Exactly.
And then you tell them, and it all sounds so cheap anyway.
Exactly.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
Like, I don't even know how to tell you.
Yeah.
What God's doing in me, I can't tell you. I can't put it into words.
Right.
If I put it into words, I have to bring it up here, and I have to use the word love for the word for agape, which both of them are symbols, and they're both, like, they keep me away from the experience of it.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot nail this down.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, God love him. John was given the best that he could in the book of Revelation, and we still have 500 different reasons or what it really meant.
Yeah.
He said he was trying to describe it the best he knew. He had fire in his eyes. I don't know what to tell you. He had fire in his eyes. It wasn't the Jesus that I just remember. I saw him do the miracles. I knew he was the Son of God. I knew he was the Son of Man. I knew that I loved him. I heard his heartbeat, but now he's altogether different. I don't know what to tell you. He had fire in his eyes. I don't know what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
That's the giants that are coming forth in the land. And they're trying to describe, that's why I'm telling you guys, do not get hung up on verbiage. There's people that are using verbiage that'll hit triggers with you. Listen, this one book that I read, every chapter, it's like it says he, and then it'll say she. Talking about God. Now, when you say she about God, how many have a trigger? Yeah. Raise your hand. I'm a woman, you can show me. You guys are lying. We were all taught if you called God a she, you got to run.
Yeah.
Is that not true?
Yeah.
But God is not a dude. He's neither. And he's both. And he's all. But those are just triggers in our mind to run and hide. And that part of you that wants to run and hide is the faculty of the government of the conscience. I did. As soon as I read it, I'm like, oh no, they just called God a she. And then I had to justify it. Well, he is the many-breasted one. Have you ever seen a man with many breasts? Well, yeah, now I have. I'm so confused. He's not a man.
That's right.
He's altogether different, and so are you. The essence of who he is cannot be nailed down. It's here to be experienced. And I love it. I love that we barely know anything. Listen, you want to be a son, you got to be okay with mystery. You operate from the faculty of trust and love and peace. I don't know. I'm going to sell everything. I just know I got to follow this man. It doesn't make any sense. You're generations of fishermen. I don't know. He even told me how I'm going to die. I'm going to be slaughtered for it. But there's something else. There's a deeper place in me that I know I got to govern from it, or I'll never, if I don't go down this road, what'll happen? I'm going to live and die in this earth and experience so far. What have I experienced? This is why people could thank God for their trials, because it got them to the end of their self. And they could learn that they're altogether different anyway. But God, I'm so confused by you. Well, yeah, that's your natural mind. He's amazing and you're of his essence. He's indescribable and you are of his essence. He's the all-knowing one and you are of his essence. He's everywhere and you are of his essence. Oh, can you really spirit travel? Oh, I don't know. He's everywhere and you're of his essence. I don't know. Do you think that's true what they're doing? That people are leaving their bodies and they're going to other nations? Oh, I don't know. He's indescribable. He's omnipresent. He's fluid. He's spirit and you are of his essence. Listen, that part of you that wants to nail down what people are doing or get afraid, that is your natural carnal self, guys. We've never, I don't know, maybe in my limited knowledge in this part. And I've never been alive when there were so many people seeking spirituality. Let them. I have no fear of it. I have no fear of it. Let them, even if they're verbiage, they're different books, whatever, because God is that big, he's going to bring them to himself. It's not, listen, we're okay if you do all these carnal sins. We're okay. But you start calling God a she. I'm going to call my friends. We got to start putting you on the prayer chain or whatever. That's the truth.
Yeah, it is.
You start doing this stuff. You start getting off into this. What's the difference? People are off. People are on journeys. People get confused, okay? But we live in a day that especially a younger generation is seeking after spirituality. And they're going to find their own essence. And they're going to find the glory of God within them. And they're going to operate from it. You ready? All right. See, I don't know what to do when I get that. I don't know what to do with that part.
Let it go. Keep doing it.
Sure. She wants to write something on the board. Write it bigger. You can even write it below. Listen, it's that the part of us that lives from the conscience is always wanting to know how, where, when, why, all of those. It's always the questions. Where are we going? What's the vision? Da, 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 you know. Do you want me to erase some of it? I have to do it with my foot. All right, you gotta speak loud.
Okay, so when I start this doesn't seem like it goes into this, but it does go into this. Okay, so religion tells us that the basis to God's judgment of you, or whether you're all right with him or not, is belief in sin. And I'm going to focus on the belief part of that. So before that, though, with that sin thing, if sin could change God's mind about you, then sin wouldn't have power over God. So there's
That's
that.
True. Yep. There's
With
that.
the belief thing,
You
so
should write that down.
people like to know what you believe in, right? You got them people coming up to your house, knocking on your door. You don't answer, and then they leave that pamphlet there, and it's always like, do you believe in God, or what do you believe in? Do you know where you're going when you die, right? Those things, and that's their focus. Do you believe in God? And if not, then you better start, or you're going to burn in hell, right? and that's the way that they try to persuade you into believing what they believe. It's more of a fear tactic, right? They use hell as like a fear tactic to try to get you to believe what they believe, because if you don't, it makes them feel, they get all tense. And it's like, that carnal mind thing where you feel like it's threatening you. I remember when I was little, my cousin told my brother, he said, "You're going to hell," right? And I was like, "That's mean." And it didn't make sense to me. I was like, a child doesn't just come up with that. You have to hear that somewhere. We're taught these things, right? And so when he said that, like I said, it didn't make sense to me, because at the time, hell didn't really make sense to me, because my thought was, God loves me and God loves everyone around me. And if God knows everything, then he knows where I'm going before I die, right? Which means if he does want me to go to hell, he knows before he makes me all the decisions I'm going to make to have to make me go there, which would make him torturous. God cannot be torturous and loving at the same time. And so, that didn't make sense to me. I was like, how can hell be like that? Now I know hell is more of a circumstance, not a place, right? It's things that you go through, right? And so, along with that, my thought was, I thought Jesus died for all of us, not a handful of people, not a handful of us who decide to believe in him, right? Actually, I think this is like the percentage from 2015 was, 31.2% of the world is Christian or believes in God, and 68.8% of the world does not. So you're telling me that Jesus died for 31% of the world, right?
Yeah.
That's less than 1/3. And the rest of us, that almost 70%, is going to go burn in hell because we don't believe. And that just, it makes his sacrifice meaningless. It belittles it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have that significance,
You're right.
right? And it makes God self-centered because do you need that recognition? Does it really hurt you that much? This man's over here like, I don't believe in God. He's not real. He's like, oh, that hurts my feelings, right? That's not how God is, right? And so with that, it's like religion tells us that that's the basis to it, right? If someone believing in you is the basis to your sacrifice, then you're only really concerned about yourself, right? And what people think about you. God does not care what you think about him. God does not have an ego. He does not have a fear of
That's
rejection.
good.
He doesn't. He's not scared of you,
Yep.
right? What you think about him does not change who he is or make him fear you. You don't threaten him,
Yep.
right? He's not scared of your opinion. And if he was, that's like contradiction, right? That's contradiction there.
So we don't have to stand up for him.
We don't have to stand up for him. Yeah. And like we try to make it our job to,
Yeah.
you have to teach people these things. We try to make it our job to try to save people like God didn't already complete it. He already did it, right? And so he's not angry at you, right, for not believing in him or for this other person not believing in him. And I think about it this way too. So it's not necessarily about believing because you were with God before time began. So you know him, right? Your mind doesn't know that you know him all the time, but your spirit knows, right? You were with him before. And so it's not even about believing it. It's about remembering and awakening to that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think about it like this in this analogy. If there's a child, right, this 2-year-old, and 5 years later I see this 2-year-old again. I love this 2-year-old, right? And they're, that's 7? They're 7 now, right? And they don't remember a thing about me. I'm not mad at this child for not remembering a thing about me. I still
There you
love
go.
this child.
Yep.
God's not mad at you for not remembering him. He loves you anyway, right? And if he did care, it makes him petty and it makes him childish. And that's not who he is.
That's a T-shirt. Do you
Right.
serve a childish God?
And so, like with that, and then it makes it seem like they've been saying we put God in a box, right? This religion does. And so we make it like God has to decide. Are you going to hell or are you going to heaven? He has to choose. He doesn't have, we try to make it like, he's like, oh, they did this and this and this, and that goes against the rule or the law, right? We try to make a law for God. You can't put God in a box, right? And like I said earlier, hell isn't a place, hell is a circumstance. You could have gone through hell this past week, right? Hell is something that you go through or you put yourself through, right? And that brings me to the board. Okay, so why do we have hell, right, is that question. So we go through bad things that we go through, right, and we go through darkness, and death doesn't necessarily have to be physical, can be, right, but death can be anything dying out of you, right, and then hell is a circumstance, right. So with all these things, we consider all these things evil, and all these things are like great, right. Mm-hmm. We label different things, right, we discern them, right. But I like to put an analogy like this. With a volcano, we say a volcano is destructive, right? All that destruction, all that death comes, but after all that, there's life. That whole reason we have those volcanic eruptions is so that we have things to grow after that, and it creates more life. So that bad or that evil brings good. That darkness brings light. That death brings life. And I know this one kind of makes you want to cringe, but hell brings heaven, right? And so because the thing with that is you can't fully understand something unless you go through the opposite of it.
Yep.
So this doesn't make sense unless you go through this, because if my life has been nothing but good, right, if I only ever experience good things, I don't even realize it's good. It's just something. It's just neutral because
Right.
I've never
It's
been
neutral.
through anything bad.
That's right.
Right? And so an example would be if you have a stopped up nose, right, and that's a small thing, but that stopped up nose, when it goes away, you relearn what it feels like to be able to breathe comfortably, right? So that's that same thing can be as small as that. So all these things we view as bad, but bad can be an awakening to good, right? Darkness can be an awakening to light. Death can be an awakening to life, and hell can be an awakening to heaven. They're all awakenings. It's all perspective, what you're thinking, right? And I like how Miss Tammy phrased it. She said hell could just be God's fiery love for us, right? And so all the things that we go through is just to awaken us to the memory of what life is. And like all the stuff that I said, we're learning. We're not just learning, we're relearning this stuff. So we have to be a child again, right? Because you have to relearn it in order to understand it. And so they're processes. The reason if you were just given the outcome and that's it, you don't understand what it means. But going through the process makes you appreciate the outcome. It makes you understand what it actually means. You don't understand the beauty of a chair unless you're forced to stand, right? So God made us out of love, right? He made us so that he could share his love with us, right? He put us on earth so that we can get the full experience of what that love means. So we go through all the processes and we go through all the pain and the trial and the tribulation that we go through in order to understand what it means to be loved by him, what it means to be me, right? What it means to be myself. You awaken to who you are because you knew before, right? But you relearning it further enhances the fact you know it now. You have the full understanding of what that means, right? So like another example of that is there's a song and it says, it's the rainy days that give us love for the sun. It's the lows in life that make you cherish the highs, right? Without one, the other does not exist. Without one, the other does not exist because it's just, like I said, it's just neutral. It's just something. So pressure makes diamonds, pain refines, right? So
Say that again.
pressure makes diamonds and pain refines, right? So pain shows you what it means to be painless, right? If you don't have pain, you don't understand what it means to be painless, right? So everything happens for a reason. There is nothing that you go through that you can't handle. There's nothing God gives you that you can't handle. It's just a matter of if you're going to decide if you're going to handle it, if you're going to let it handle you. That's all it is. So we were with him before. We were put here, like I said. And like I said, you don't understand what heaven is unless you go through some type of hell. So God said, let there be light, and there was light, and it was good, right? And I can't imagine how beautiful that must have been. But without the darkness, it wouldn't have been as beautiful as it was. So we have all these opposing things, and we label them, but it's our perspective. It's our mind that chooses to label them. But everything just goes back to the fact that God loves us, right? And the fact that everything he does, everything we go through is for our good. And so, you don't understand, because I can tell you all day that God loves you no matter what. But unless you go through that no matter what, it means nothing.
You're right.
Right?
Yep.
So it's why he gave us Earth, right? He made an entire planet for you. He made an entire universe for you to understand just how much he loves you and to understand how important you are and what you mean to him.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. That's my last line that I said was, you guys remember Graham Cook, the beautiful man? We used to put people on Graham Cook diets. Like, I don't know, you just need to go on a Graham Cook diet. He said that the devil is a toothless dog shepherding you to where you need to get to. He's lost his bite. You want to say that now, or you want to wait till next week? It's up to you.
Me? Mm-hmm. Oh, I got time?
Yeah.
All right, why not? I got to read some of it then. Well, most of it. Okay, she caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting this, so I talked to her about it earlier. It's not on. Can y'all hear me? No. Okay, can you?
They'll turn it on. Just keep talking.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay, there. All right. I wasn't really expecting to do it this soon, but this is great. I can get it over with. I say that because I don't like talking in front of people. All right, so don't y'all laugh, I really don't. I used to be freaked out. She'd have to practically hold my hand. Okay, so I was going to go over something just real quick, try to make it quick. Our daddy's love and how it's been for us with our loss. I'm sure Sheila and them have seen it, and others in here have seen it through your losses before.
Can I give his son transitioned 2 weeks ago. So those of you that don't know that, all of a sudden what he's about to say has a lot more weight. Okay?
So now I have a voice for something I
And
never
when I say
wanted.
transition, I don't mean that he transitioned into being a girl.
Or hell.
He passed from the earth.
Yeah, he, unfortunately, it's happened to a lot of people now just since he transitioned. In just our area, just talking to a couple of people, that more people are dying from fentanyl overdose that's in the heroin out there. And also I found out that he started this when he was 17 or 18 years old. I didn't know that. He was sober for about 2 years. And so anyway, he, I think he's addicted to a lifestyle. And it wasn't just the heroin. So anyway, so about a year ago, our neighbors from California, they moved in across from us. We pray for neighbors who, had kids that would go good with our child. And we wanted believers, of course. And we had believers that moved out. And it's funny because Slovakians moved out. A Slovakian moved in. That was pretty cool. And his wife is just so cool. Her and I our personalities are very much alike. He's like my wife. We all get along great. They're such giving, loving people, newer type believers, so they are buying into here totally. They don't want the religious crap. They've been turned off by it. They came from Catholic and Jewish, so that'll tell you something. So my brother got a job down here. Him and I hadn't worked in the same state since we were in Alabama 26 years ago. He got a job down here, and this was just recent. So he was coming to live with us starting this week for about 3 or 4 weeks till he gets an apartment down here. So that's another thing God did. Do I believe that was just for my brother? No, it was for me and my brother, but for me. Then a couple weeks ago, or a couple weeks prior to my son passing, had a dream. Well, the two previous dreams were Darren, he's laughing, and it just so joyful, laughing, and everything's all great, and he's just loving on me, and that's mine and his experience. I've shared it with Sheila, and he was giving me what I needed. He gave me what I needed here. And I was not that close to Darren. It wasn't like we were buds. He was my spiritual father. I knew he was. God confirmed that in a dream, too. That's how he communicates with me. So that's why I missed him so much, more than I missed my own father. In this dream, Darren was showing me around in his house. And I know his house and his family is personal to him. He was showing me a couple of things. And then he's looking at me, and he has turned his head, and he's crying. He never smiled in this dream. And he's crying. He says, "I'm sorry." And I'm just shortening it up. So I asked Sheila, I told her about it. She said, maybe he's telling you he's sorry because, he's sorry that you're going through the hurt. And, of course, with me, for him leaving, I thought, oh, man, he'd be coming to a lot more people before he'd be coming to me telling him he's sorry. That's how my thinking is. So 2 weeks, I'm thinking probably 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks later, my son, they had found him dead. And so I'm just looking here at my little notes. So I'll get back to that. We went to the trip, our vacation, and my son, there's so much more to him that had happened than people know, and I'm still finding out things and what he was involved in, what he was forced to do, whether owing money or whatever. But I can say one thing for him. He did not steal from us. He wasn't one of those kind of addicts, and he would try to pay people back. He was giving. He had a loving heart like his mother. He would give. He wasn't like me. I felt like I was just a selfish bastard,
It's in the Bible, bastard.
But he wasn't. He was like his mama. Yeah. And so anyway, he, I was in Phoenix, and I told y'all the story. If y'all were here, I'd hugged I'd hugged this homeless guy, young man. He was 26, same age as my son. And I just wanted to hug him. For some reason, I just had this desire in me to hug him and not be bothered by how filthy he was and just show him how much I care about him as a person and love him. I hadn't done this before, and I know a lot of it's because of the change in my heart of God's changing things and tearing out that religious crap I was raised on for years and made me more condemning than I was before I became a Christian. And so I'm loving on this guy and hugging him, and Darren always, he got me to where I believe numbers were significant. And I hugged him twice. I had no idea why I wanted to do that. I had such a desire. I said, can I hug you again, man? I'm telling him I love him, and I'm the type of guy that I'm not going to tell you I love you unless I do. I've learned there's different levels of love, but I don't. Love is something that when you say it, many people say it and they don't show it. I'll just put it that way. So with him, and when I did this, I got in the car, and my wife's like, what's his story? I said, he's Caleb, and I broke down crying. And so that was kind of it, you know. So anyway, my son, that was before he died. And you know, it was like, okay, whatever, you know. So my son dies, and I can't remember the last time I hugged him. Can't remember about telling him I love him. It's been so bad in the past year, I guess mainly, or right after COVID, he got released from jail and was released on the streets. And it was bad enough before that. I didn't want to let him come back to the house, but I thought if I don't, my wife's like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, he'll die on the streets. So we let him back in the house. And it was okay for a while. And actually okay for quite a while because we were locked down, couldn't do anything. We were all together. And then as things started opening up, of course, he wanted Wills to get back on the streets again. And that means he can, you know, get his stuff. And, I mean, it just opened up other doors for him that he wasn't strong enough for. Court systems, Harris County sucked. It sucks the way that they try to take care of people. They don't. They put them out on the streets. Cops even telling me they're dying out there because they were on the streets getting hit by cars, whatever. At least Fort Bend County tried to help. So I'm promoting Fort Bend County. So Harris, anyway, I couldn't get my son help. You know, we pleaded with probation officers, whoever would listen. We would plead with them, trying to get them help. So anyway, I'm going along. I'm going to switch gears. Okay, so at the awakening, my wife and I, at different times, we were coming up, and we thought we saw Caleb when we were walking up to the door. This is in the same day. It was Travis. We looked through the front door, and there was a glare there, but the person we saw inside was Travis. But for a second, we thought it was Caleb, and that's significant because during the conference, first, okay, kind of going back to Darren, Miss Mary said she saw Darren pulling Caleb out of his body and just all this junk coming off of him, torment or whatever, okay? Of course, I was excited, and I was like, oh, my goodness, that's pretty awesome, you know? And then Alex said she saw him, I think, up on the stage with her dad, and I got excited about that. And then I'm just trying to kind of keep, I don't want to skip over anything on here. And Darren and Caleb were connected. It was just one of those things where Darren prophesied over on Caleb's crime when we first started coming here. And Caleb's like, how does he know this stuff? It's like, it's his gifting, man. God's just showing him and showing who you are. And he had a desire to connect with Darren, but Caleb was going to do things his way. You know, he had it in his head, but then he gets this from me. He had it in his head, but he was going to go a different route. He wasn't going to be able to stick to it. So, but Darren told me, he said, your son reminds me of me. And he said, I believe it's going to take prison, you know, for him. So I really had hoped that because the alternative was going to be death. So that's what I'd hoped for. Well, so other people saw, well, I think maybe one other person had seen them, but regardless, okay, so so we were at my house and at the memorial, and Travis said, Chris, when Caleb, something was going on Friday night. He said he felt Caleb hanging over his shoulders, and he said, I felt him like kind of putting his arms over it, which would be something Caleb would do. And he said, and he was telling him when you hug that boy, that young man, that he felt it. So that's where the number 2 comes in. Twice he felt him. He felt me hugging him, and he felt the love. And I said, I believe that. And I was thinking the same thing. So that confirmed it. I said, man, you just confirmed it right there. And he waited till the memorial to tell me. Eddie told me that Caleb gave me a message. I took this from what Eddie said. Eddie told me that after Connie spoke to him, and if you think that's weird that Connie speaks to him, well, oh well, I want my son to speak to me, so call me weird too, and I can't wait till he does. He said he introduced himself, and he asked that he give me a message from him. He knows where our hearts are, and he feels the love coming from Laura and I. He is at peace and needs us to go forward, showing others the love like we did the homeless man. And he'll be honored and is sending his love to help heal both of us. Love, Caleb. So that was pretty incredible. And the thing with us thinking we saw Caleb on Travis is because Travis later, I'm sure that was Friday. We're thinking it was Thursday or Friday. So Friday night, Travis says this, well, it's like Caleb was here. His spirit was here. It was here with Darren. Darren's here all the time, you know. It was here. Connie, obviously, is here, too, because she was on the stage, too, if I remember right. So they're partying. They're partying with us, you know, in the spirit. And I believe, this is me, and I believe I would die with this belief, that when Darren came to me in the dream, I believe that we still have some free will in heaven. God doesn't want robots. That's part of why we're here. That Darren either volunteered or just said, I want to go get Caleb. There was a connection there. He loves me. I know Darren loved me. I know there was a part of him, just how Darren is. He, to a certain extent, he loved my son. Loved my son as being somebody that reminded him of him. And he wanted to come get my boy. And he did. And that my boy, when he died, I wasn't there with him. But at least he saw a man that I loved. And the man I loved was there with him. And so I just want y'all to know how much our daddy loves us and how much he loved me. That he sent a man that I care so much about. And I love so much. And I only knew him a short time, but he sent him to be with my boy because I couldn't be with my boy. And I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me or my family because we're going to raise up. And I have a voice now. I didn't have a voice before with my son when he was here with his addiction. Not really. Now I feel like I got more of a voice. And I'm going to do something, whatever, or many things, but I'm going to make a difference. And that my boy didn't die, you know, and it just meant nothing, and his life meant nothing. I'm going to use his addiction and his torment. I'm going to use it for good. And we're going to save lives. And already I think that we've done some things. I hope that God that I hugged and told him I loved him, I hope that made a difference in his life. You know, I hope that he survives and he doesn't die and that he goes back to his family because he kind of did what Caleb did. He told me he was part of the reason he wasn't with his family. And, you know, Caleb kind of did that too. But I guess that's kind of it. I wanted to share with y'all as a family and y'all as a people just that the addiction is so bad out there. And the fentanyl just makes it worse where it's killing the people. I was told by a guy that survived, and he spent 4 weeks in a hospital because his organs had to heal. And I said, man, my biggest thing was that I know my son died alone. I know that when he was, I just was thinking, was he thinking or speaking and crying out for me and thinking about me? Because I always wanted to rescue him. He was my baby, and he cried out a while before he got tased by the police. He's crying out, Dad, Dad. You know, he's crying out to me, and I'm just freaking out, just breaking down. Poor Juliet was right there with me, and she's comforting me. Through all this, she's comforting me, my baby. His baby, if y'all don't know this, Juliet, is his little girl. I want him to eventually at least be there for her. And things don't always go the way you planned. But this guy told me, he said, your son didn't feel anything. He just went to sleep. He said, that's what it does to you. You just go to sleep. So he's in a good place. I don't believe and that was part of what I was going to say too. It's kind of me on my soapbox now about hell and about torment. And my son, you know, the way I used to believe, he would be burning right now. Did he say a prayer? Yeah, he said a prayer with his friend, and then went right back doing what he was doing. We were his youth pastors. He was a good kid, but we lost him when he was about 13. From then on, it just was a downward spiral. But I do know that hell is here on this earth between our ears, and there's people that they just want to hear love. They want love. And it doesn't matter if they're gay, lesbian, murderers, whatever they are. If they hear love and they get God's love in their heart, they're going to change. And that's all that I'm wanting to do. And I tell you, God's ripping away that religious crap and that I learned before and just got more condemning and judgmental towards people. He's tearing it down so quick. And that's when Sheila's up here, and boy, she's on a roll today, isn't she? I'm loving it. I'm like, what happened while she was on vacation? That is what's needed. That is totally what's needed. It needs to be in their face with love, and people just know we're tired of this religious crap because it's also tearing our country apart. And it'll tear the world apart. And it's time we just keep tearing it down and just preach love. Just preach love. So anyway, that's it. Thanks for so much time. I'm sorry for crying.
Oh, he said he's sorry for crying. That's all we do around here. Oh, I told them they knew that they were set up, weren't you? Your whole family was set up. We're not here to survive. We're here to transcend it all and live from our essence. I want you guys to stand up with me. I'm going to read a couple scriptures. There's a space that we're learning to live in. It's in the essence of who we are. It's the agape love that only loves. It doesn't know condemnation. Religion is foreign, okay? And these scriptures describe this space. Therefore, I tell you, this is the place, whatever you ask for, you're going to receive it. This is the place that when Jesus said, verily, verily, truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works that are greater than I do. This is that space, that free-falling space. Those that are led by the Spirit of God are the sons of God. And he said that the Son came to do nothing of his own, only what the Father told him to do or showed him to do. He even said in front of his disciples, I know, God, that you hear me, but I say this just so the people standing here, that they might believe that you sent me. The space that your essence, this space where you're learning to govern from, okay, you don't even have to pray. It's just a yielded place. It's just a place of peace, of joy, and knowing his voice. And this is the place where you and the Father are one, and you get to enjoy this. Do you want to say something and end us in prayer? Is that what you want to do? Okay. Father, I just thank you for everybody here. I thank you for our family. God, I thank you for every trigger that teaches us, God, when we're in our carnal self. God, I thank you for the deep river of your love that never ends. God, I just thank you for Caleb. God, I thank you that he lives, that he's being discipled by you. God, I thank you that he speaks clearly, that he's no longer in torment. God, I thank you for his family, that they are going to transcend all the lies of the enemy, God, and live in that same space where Caleb lives, which is his presence, your presence, his essence. We love you, God. God, I love the people that you're drawing together. God, I thank you that we are free to fully be who we are, that we are fully loved, that we are fully accepted. And God, so quickly, God, when we shift into that other way of governing, let it sound like, claws on a chalkboard, that we're so irritated by that voice, God, that we come into the deeper place where it's only one voice. We bless you. Amen. The address is up here. If you didn't get the address, we'd love to hang out with you. Go buy some food and we'll come hang out with y'all. It's the Breakfast Club song.